Welcome back to another TCR DAP, this driver assistance program for extreme motorsports. We just want to get get some some goals laid down first. This is not for your elite alien drivers. This is going to be for people that are struggling on the track. And if you're more than 1 or 2 seconds off the pace, this will help get you a lot closer. So hopefully if you've already done some laps, that's what I suggest. Go run around, just kind of get a feel for the track. Um, if you want to compare to what you're doing, run around, get comfortable with the track, and then watch this video. I mean, you could do it the other way too. But it's if you've watched my other video about learning a new track, I kind of suggest that's the approach because there won't always be track guides out there or people to help you all the time. I mean, if you're on a team that supports you like that, great. If you're on your own, you need to learn how to learn tracks on your own. But anyway, the approach is up to you. So, like I said, this is for basically laying down safe, repeatable laps. So, what this is all about. So the first thing, we're going to go ahead and get into our session here. I'm using the league's weather. So we'll go to our sessions. And we're going to be doing this in the Honda, but this should be very similar in the Elantra. I will go ahead and run both laps. I'm only going to do basically the track guide for the Honda, and then I will try doing laps in the Elantra to see how close that is. They're almost identical as far as brake points and things. Shift points might be slightly different, but the brake points and turn entry and stuff like that should all be the same. So I'm going to be in the Civic. We are at Daytona in the road course, and for our weather, you can see here if you want to set your session up exactly the same, which I would if you're trying to compare. Looks like we're at 7:18 in the morning. Oh, sorry, that's never mind. So it looks like we're at 65 degrees, 44% humidity. I have this on. If you have metric, I don't know what 65 degrees is. I'd have to do the math. But anyway, this is the setup, and typically we start with. Let me see the track info has that. It does not. Typically, we start off with about 40% wear. Or yeah, right here. So you can see our track usage is at 40%. We're leaving the marbles on. So if you want to run the same exact test that I'm running, same thing. Let's see. We also run 50% fuel. So you'll see here the Civic's running 50% fuel. Oops. And so is, well, the Audi. Nobody's running the Audi this season. That's a little bit different. And then the Elantra is also 50%. So let's go and fire it up. Alright, so first things first, just from the little bit of testing I was doing earlier, the only thing I would change, so you can see here I'm going literally into the baseline setup. With our 50% fuel, that's 13.2 gallons, 50 liters. As far as setup goes, I would really try to do this just with the baseline, but I already know that I want the ABS a little higher just because the back end's kicking around. There's a couple things you can do to mitigate that, but for a very basic rudimentary, we're not looking for tenths of a lap here. We're looking for like half a second to a second. That's the whole purpose of this video. It's not to, pull off a tenth of a second, on a lap. We're looking for big chunks of time here. That's the big chunks of time are going to come from driving style. I mean, unless you dial a setup really far out, but their baseline is fairly good. Daytona might be a little bit different. You might want to take some wing out, but that's going to make you looser and things like that. I'm not going to get into that in this video. So for just getting around basic, laying down consistent, safe laps so you guys are comfortable, we're just going to crank the ABS here all the way to 11. That's the max assist. I am going to put my brake bias back at 70, but I'm also going to set my brake valve way back to 1. And the reason why is, you've heard me talk about this maybe in other videos, is I'm going to crank the rear brake valve. I'm going to add some more as the tires warm up and the back end is more stable. But I'm going to start here with 70. If you guys are struggling with the back end kicking out on you, you might be applying too much brakes. You might be applying too much brakes while turning, because you do want to trail brake in this car, but you want to do a lot of your braking while the steering wheel's straight, and then you back off of a little bit, but not completely let off the brakes. So you might be like 75% to 100% while the steering wheel's straight, backing off to like 50% as the wheel turns. The more the wheel turns, the more you're backing off the brakes. But if you need to, you can put this up at like 75 to start with. I wouldn't go any higher than that. I think you're just going to be locking up the fronts. So anyway, set the valve at 1, set the brake bias to something that you're comfortable with. Like I said, you can start with this just like I am. If your back end is still too unstable, the other thing you can do is take this toe in. It's negative, which means you have toe out. So I'll go over this. The Elantra runs this a lot higher, but the first thing you want to do is, like I said, well, I wouldn't play with this too much yet right now, but I'm going to go over it in the video because we're talking about setup. So one of the things you can do is take some of this toe out, because we're negative. I know it says toe in. And before we do that, we have to keep track of what our ride height is and what our camber is, because when you change the toe in, it's going to be changing your ride height and your camber as the just the way the geometry and the rears work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this back to the smallest negative number just to show you guys how it's done. So I'm going to put this at the smallest negative number, which is negative 0.8. You can see my camber change, so I'm going to put this at back to the 3.0. And it looks like my ride height kind of stayed the same. If it did, I can't. So they wanted to go max, but we're already at the max, so I'm just going to put that right back to where it was. So I'm still the smallest negative, I'm still 3.0, and my ride heights are good. So this is probably what I would run. Let me see if I go one more. Nope. This is a really small positive number. You could do this as well, but if you have trouble with the back end, I'd try the smallest negative number first, and then if that's still too much, go to the smallest positive. This will come into play if you start playing with the wing here, because if you start taking wing out and start making this like negative 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, the back end is going to be a lot looser on you. And it affects both the high speed and the low speed. I'm actually kind of surprised how much the wing affects the low speed stability on this car. But anyway, we're going to set this back because, like I said, we are going to just go with the standard iRacing setup, except for our bias. That's funny. It was. I'm going to set this at 70 and 1. I'm not sure why those were different last time because I thought I loaded it up. And the ABS we want to set up to 11. So these are the only things I'm changing right now. Is basically my brakes. That's it. Everything else I'm leaving exactly the same. All right. Let's go run some laps. Oh, before we do that, here's what the weather looks like currently. And I'm going to change that over to metric so you can see that again. Now we'll run some laps. Now remember, we are not looking for hero laps here. We are looking for consistency, just getting around the track without major mistakes.
They're showing us the black flag. You cut that corner. Gotta come in for a stop and go.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into a graph so we can see just how consistent it is. These lap times look pretty close. You'll see in the very beginning, high 50, I mean 59, still some cold tires, but then after that, I mean, it pretty much evens out. I mean, if we look at this graph, it's going to be pretty flat. So I'll just put that together just for you guys to look anyway. But I think it's going to be pretty basic. All right. So if we're looking at our data here, you don't necessarily have to do this all the time. You can get a pretty good idea of how your times are looking, looking at this. But just wanted to show you, based on the average lap here. If you look at my times here, my worst one off my average, this isn't off of my fast lap, this is off the average, is 0.34 is the worst. And the fastest lap was a quarter second faster. So my entire range here is what? 0.6 seconds. From my best lap to my worst lap is 0.6 seconds. And if you look at, this one here with the cold tires, I mean, what's my worst off my average? 0.13. So even there, so you look at that. If you throw out this one lap, I'm within 0.4 seconds of each other. That's my range. So when I talk about consistency, that's what I'm talking about. If you can get that consistent, and again, we're not looking for the hero laps. We're looking at hitting our marks. The break point. If you're trailing, when you stop trailing, your turn-in points. When you actually come back to the throttle. Those are the things that we're actually looking for here, just to be consistent. So this is what I mean by consistency. Don't mess with setup until you can do this. All right, then. We're going to go ahead and break this lap down. So, like I said, we're very consistent here. So I'm still gonna take my fast lap. I mean, we could really just pick just about any of these, but I'm just gonna go ahead and pick lap 9 here. And we really shouldn't see anything. And we really shouldn't see anything crazy here, because there shouldn't be any big late braking or anything like that. I mean, it's just trying to lay down a consistent lap. So I'm going to back this down. Actually, I don't think I need to back it down. I think because our first break point that we're looking at here is before this sign. So it's kind of hard to pick up this sign if you're coming into it. It's really hard to see this stoplight up here, and you can't see the these white lines yet, but what you can see is you can see this little sign right here. So that's kind of a good indicator for where you need to start focusing for your break point. It's not exactly this break point, and it's not exactly this sign, but if you're behind somebody, you can kind of use these for reference points if you're coming in here. And because I actually like to use one of these stripes, but you can also get a good reference for where these things are at. So if we roll up here, well, you can kind of take back what I said, because here's that sign I was talking about, the 100. And if you draw a line out here, it's not exact, but you can kind of see this is kind of where I want to be braking, right in here. So I talked about this sign before, this guy right here. This is not the break point. You can, I mean, this is where you can start experimenting, how late you can brake in here. But for a consistent lap, so that you don't spin and go trailing off in here, this break point here is going to be a little bit easier for you guys to control coming in here. So I'm going to come in here slowly. So I want to be braking. It's hard to see at this angle, but a little bit past that. I want to be right about in here, somewhere between before, like you can see, let's see here. You can see this little break right here in the seam. It's really hard to see, especially if you're behind somebody. But I want to be somewhere right about here, and maybe the latest in here. That's kind of like if I was looking at my brake zone, it'd be kind of like that. And you'll see here that that is much further than this sign. So if you're using this sign, look how much later that is. That's a lot later. So brake in here, you know, just after this stripe, or you can't see it anymore, but where that 100 marker was, right in that area. And then I want to be downshifting. I want to be downshifting on this. So basically downshifting at the sign. I want to be, that'll put you into 5th. This will put you into 4th. The beginning of this grass will be into 3rd. And then a little bit after that, it's kind of the beginning of this grass, you'll be into 2nd. So this is 5, 4, 3, and 2. And you'll see that in just a second here. Brake, shift, 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 shift. Now the other thing too is you can use, so this was going into 4th right here. You can use this guy as your next shift point for 3rd gear here. And then this is that little grass piece I was talking about out here. You can use that for 2nd, or you can use just kind of like this little kink right here. You can use that for 2nd as well. So you can see, basically as soon as I run over this little kink, I go into 2nd. Now, about the line here, you want to be shooting out pretty wide, and you want to be basically touching this white line out in this area here. You want to have the right sides basically in there, so you can have a good run into this apex here. A good turning point is kind of aim for getting those rights just to barely touch where this seam is. It's a nice easy spot to see, and you can also see this if you're behind another car, because you can see it how it travels all the way out here. So you've got all this area right here that you can look at. And then what you're trying to do is trying to set up for a very late apex on this. You've heard me talk about this in other videos. Late apex this car pretty much everywhere. This is what I like to hit right here. That little spot, that's what I'm going to be aiming for. There's like a piece of paint that sticks out. I don't know. It's not a smooth line, it's like a point. Actually, I think in other laps, I might even come a little bit later. The other point, there's another little jaggy right here. Sometimes if I'm wider, I'll try to hit that, get a nice good run, because you really want to straighten this thing out. If this is, if you're tucked in too tight down here, you're just going to push all the way, and you're going to be off in the grass over here. So you want to make sure you get a nice, good straight line there. If you start heading towards the grass over here, let off. I have another video on throttle control, but you can kind of keep your steering wheel the same as it is, and you really want to make sure that you are nice and stable through here with your steering, and you can just use a little bit of, let off a little bit if you have to come back. Hit the curbs on the right, hit the curbs on the left. My next brake point is the end of the stripes here. It's nice and safe. To Can you go later? Again, you know, I'll probably say this for the last time. You can always go later than what I'm doing here. This is to help you guys get a nice, stable, consistent lap. So, brake at the end of the paint. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be downshifting. There's going to be a little spot up here I'll show you on the left. But you pretty much want to keep it completely straight and don't turn in until you hit this. There's a little mark right out in this little area. Oh, the other thing is you have to watch out for traffic coming out pit road. So if there's someone coming out, make sure you stay to the right. Give those people room on the left. Oops, I'll talk about my shift points as well. So here you're going to be in fourth. My first downshift point is this cone, and my last is that cone. So I'll be going into third here and going to second here. And then this is that point I was talking about. You're not waiting obviously till that point, but you know, make sure you can see this very well. If I back this up a little more, you'll see that it's kind of hard to see that a little bit. Whoops. Like here, I mean, I can see it, but you want to be up in, you know, probably about maybe turn in after this little spot. It's kind of funny because I'm not actually, a lot of places actually have a nice point to that I'm doing my turn in, but I just kind of get a feel for when this guy here is about right here on my dash, you know, above my dash, that's when I want to be turning in. So you'll see here if I go slow, there. Now you can start seeing my wheel turning in. I'm going to roll this. Now you guys can't see. With triples, it's a lot easier to see. But what you're looking for is trying to lay apex this. I probably hit this a little early. But you can see here, you want to be after, see how there's this bright white and bright yellow here? You want to be after that. If you're hitting that, you're going to be going too far off in that direction. You don't want to be doing that. So you want to be hitting this as late, pretty much as late as you can. And as I tell people, when you're, a lot of these curbs the way they are and a lot of these tracks, you almost want like your tires to be shooting out of the curb. So pretend like the end of the curb is like a barrel, and you want your tires to be the bullet, and you want it to be that line. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So as I go through here, I'm touching there, and you can see my throttle. I'm on it a little bit because I know now that I'm just going to get it to rotate, and I want to make sure I hit that curb on the way out. Now, I didn't quite get probably the angle that I wanted there. You can see my hands are turned at 12 o'clock, and I'm already full throttle. Typically, I wouldn't do this. Let's see if I go wide enough to let off the throttle here. It didn't have to. Sometimes you can shoot off a little bit too much. But what I like to do, if I probably look at some other laps, this is going to shoot out probably a little bit more in this direction. And on this lap here, I'm kind of shooting off in that direction. So try to get this woed up, but you do not want to be running this curb. Wow, you really can't see it here. But you really don't want to be on the curb down in here. You want to make sure you're hitting this after this point. So where it's nice and dark, that's when you want to start hitting that curb. Now, you want to let it roll all the way out to the curb here. If you're running mixed classes and they're faster, like a GT3, they're probably going to be already trying to hit the inside of you, going up in this area. GT4s, don't have experience yet with that. We'll be doing that next week. So if you just stay out here, then you can figure out what they're going to do. We'll have to figure that out in practice, but you want to basically run on there. If you feel like your tires are going to be hitting this grass out here, let off. Because if you hit that grass, this is going to slow you down so much because the angle that you're dealing with is it's trying to push you out. If you hit the grass on the inside of a turn, it's not a big deal because it's going to just kick you back onto the asphalt. The outside, it's going to want to keep taking you out there, and you're just going to have to, muscle it back, let off a little bit. So you don't want to be doing that here. Make sure you stay on that curb. don't cross over. Now this is full throttle here, but just a good place to think about turning in. It's this little kink right here. You can see a lot. You'll notice I use a lot of like paint markers and things like that. So you'll see right here, right in the middle of that circle, how this comes up and then it kinks that way. That's what I want, right in this area. That's where I'm going to be turning in. Forgot to mention, a lot of places around this track, I would practice what you're doing with too wide, meaning going into like turn one, pretending like you have somebody on the inside, and try to make that turn. Practice again with somebody trying to be on the outside. Even better yet, if you're in a practice with other people, tell them, hey, if you want practice passing me, you know, if it's like a GT4, GT3, have them set up, you know, a couple seconds behind you and get that run and get on the inside of you so that they can practice being around traffic and you can practice being around traffic as well. But if no one's around, it's going to be a turn in here and you're going to want to just clip the grass on the left. Now, for this turn, I have a brake point here, and my first downshift is here at the end of the cones. So this is brake, and this is, I don't know, shift. So brake here, start downshifting here, and you're going to keep running it straight. You're going to do a very late apex here. Yes, it'll open you up to people on the inside. If you have to run a defensive line like you have another TCR behind you, then yes, you can run this more defensively. You're going to lose a ton of time, but you won't get past. If you have a GT3, GT4 coming up on you, maybe it makes more sense to stay here, and then they can kind of cut underneath you. So you can see I just kind of flick the throttle there, or sorry, flick the shifter. So if you listen to the downshifts, it's brake on the cone, downshift, 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 and then turn in. This is my turn in right here. So I want to take it all the way out to this kind of ugly patch here. I'm starting to, I shouldn't say that's my exact turn in. But you want to make sure you're seeing that good and well before you start getting into the turn. You see how late I am on this? Yeah, let me get rid of that. So maybe I would say this might be the turning point right here where it kind of does this little kink. I'm actually watching this. My eyes are actually focused on this, but my turn-in is probably this little kink right here. And again, very late apex on this. Try to get it down. Now you can see here all this black stuff on the curb here. You want to be touching the curb about here. It's probably where you want to start hitting it. And then you can run this curb all the way around. Hitting this before, again, is too early. And this is what I was talking about when I talk about the wheels. Pretend like the curb's like a barrel and your wheels are the bullet. You want on this turn especially, you want those wheels, your right wheel coming off, hitting that grass right here. You want to be in that. You will lose a ton of speed if you're at this angle more. Let's see here. If you are off at that angle, you're going to be right in the grass again. So make sure you get that thing at kind of that angle right there, like you're going to see here. Go ahead and run onto the grass there. Now this one's not too dangerous. If you do end up off in the grass, it's not like I don't know, what is that? The first horseshoe? I forget what it's called. But that first horseshoe, you know, if you're on the exit of that, you know, you're kind of going off in this direction more. This one's not too bad. This one's pretty flat. So if you do end up off of here, it's not the end of the world, but you will lose time. Now here, I'm going to brake basically somewhere between where this the access road starts, or the cones, kind of in that area. And then I'm going to be downshifting on the paint, and I'm going to downshift again on the paint as I'm turning in. And you notice again, this is my turn in right here. What I want to do is, again, light apex. I want to try to get this guy here. You can hit this one a little bit earlier, but not too early. So the exit of this one is going to be kind of traffic dependent. You might have a GT3 or something like that is able to cut under you on exit. Then just stay wide. If you got someone on your outside, if they start creeping up, typically what I do is I'd stay low and just let them go to the outside. But if you see someone in your mirrors and all of a sudden they jut left, just be prepared for that. So I'm going to try to hit this guy again, kind of in that angle there. It's not going to be exactly, you're not going to hit it that far left, but it's going to be more in this direction here, and you're going to kind of it'll go wide a little bit there. It's fine. And this one I just play with. You're going to see your deltas. If you cut this corner, on the exit, if you keep it real tight, you're going to go, wow, I gained a lot of time. But then watch your time going towards the bus stop and see, because if you cut this exit really tight, you're going to gain time in the beginning, and you're going to lose it going on the straight on the banking. If you go wide, you'll lose time, but then you'll be have a higher top speed, and you'll make some up going down the banking. So you can play with the exit here. I don't hit this one exactly right every time. I really don't have a lot of points or markers, but I do have one that I kind of like to hit, and I'll show you that in a second. And that marker would be this guy out here. I kind of like to hit that second. Not this first one, but the second one. Not sure what I do on this lap, but we'll see. And there you go. This is what I'm talking about. I like my lefts to hit that guy right there. And then I want the lefts right on the cones. So that's kind of the arc that I'm doing. Now, a note about the banking. I don't think it's as pronounced in TCR, but I know like in GT3, stuff like that, when you're running a lot of toe out in the front, if you get on the paint here, it'll kind of drag more. So try to keep it off of that. You can watch replays, go out in the chopper and see how close you are to that line. I'm actually too high there. So I'd keep it lower than I am right now. But you'll feel it in the wheel too. You'll feel it kind of start to drag a little bit. Just stay off of it then. This is probably a little better. Yeah, see, I'm still kind of off of it. I'd go lower than I am now. Just be right next to the paint if you can. The higher you go up here, the more time you're going to lose. Now, this is one thing to just keep in mind when you have other traffic. If you got GT4, GT3 on the right side of you, just stay low. Just kind of use the seam a little bit. Maybe run the seam right in the middle, but make sure they got enough room on the outside. But I typically kind of just drift off. So you saw I came out of the turn, just kind of drift off to the right. And what I'm doing now is I'm trying to pick up these markers, because these are the, it'll say like, I'm not sure, it's 3, 2, 1. But I want to pick those markers up because I'm looking for the 2, because I'm going to brake on the 2 there. And be prepared for dive bombs here. So this is another one to practice, kind of going side by side. I don't recommend going side by side to the bus stop, but if you got someone that dives on you, know how to handle it. Alright, so this is what I was talking about. I'm going to brake on the 2. You can't see it right now, but there's a little, the traffic light, where it shows if it's a green light, yellow light, red light. That is going to be my downshift point. And then I'm going to turn in at the 1, and then I'm going to stop trail braking where the paint stops. So you're going to see all that going on here in just a second. I guess what I'll do is I'll show you running it all the way through, and then I'll back it up. Actually, I'll talk through it, and then I'll show you what it looks like at speed. So I'm going to downshift on the 2. This is that sign. Brake here, downshift here. See that sign, or the light? That's where I'm going to be downshifting. So I'm in 6, be downshifting there, and I'm going to downshift again into 1, or at the 1. At least that's what I normally do. Let's see what if I do that here. Yep. And then you'll notice my braking real hard in the beginning, or not real hard, but like 50%. I'm still trail braking, and I'm going to let off right here at the end of the paint here. This is where I'm going to let off. Now, here, I want to hit these 2 paint points. I want to hit this white, and I want to hit that white with my lefts, and I want to keep kind of going to the left. What I'm going to set this up for, I'm trying to set, and I'm going to be coasting through here. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with getting the car to balance out by, doing a little bit of gas, a little bit of brake at the same time. Just dragging the brake a little bit and then stomping on it and all kinds of stuff. But again, this is for a consistent lap. As long as if you hit these 2 marks here, I'm doing exactly or almost exactly 100 miles an hour right here. If you're at this speed and it feels comfortable, just let it roll for now, and then you'll figure out when you can start picking up the throttle and things. What I'm going to do is I want the lefts on both these, and then I want the right on just the back side. I do not want to hit this one in front. This guy right here, do not hit that guy. It's going to be too shallow, and you're going to end up in the tires over here. So you see there? As I'm coming up, it may look like my rights are there, but I'm not. I'm actually focused on this guy here. And I'm still just going to let it drift out here. And then here, I want to hit all the paint on the right. All that white. Boom, on the beginning. I'm not going to worry about, I shouldn't say all the paint. I'm not going to worry about this right here. I want to hit the one that's actually down here. I want to hit that guy, because what that's going to do is if I can hit that guy and everything's feeling comfortable, my lefts should just hit that right there. And you want to hit that. You're going to see 2 paint spots up here. You want to hit those. If you go left, it's a slowdown. It's not even an off track. Over here, this is off track. Over here, this is slowdown. So this is death for a lap, especially because if you have someone behind you burning off a slowdown, you're going to lose easy 1-2 spots. Well, you know what? I lied. So as I'm coming in here, so what you actually want to do, alright, so what I'm looking for here is, I want to hit this guy here. I don't care at all about this one over here, but I still want to kind of get an angle. So I'm going to hit this guy with my right here, and then kind of hit it out in here. But I don't want to hit this at all over there. And you can see I'm picking the throttle up. You can see as I was coasting in, coast, half throttle. And all I'm doing here is I'm judging what does the car feel like. If I have to, like on cold tires, I might be off the throttle even more. And if the tire's nice and warmed up, I can go about half throttle. And I'm just, again, look at my steering wheel here. My steering wheel hardly moves. Hardly moves through there. And now I know I'm going to be, like I'm safe, I can hit the throttle hard. Because what am I looking for? I want to hit this paint and that paint with the lefts. If you go out here, slow down. Same thing here. I like to kind of get up a little bit earlier. Some people will run the apron all the way to the cones. I just kind of like to get up here and not mess with the geometry of the track, kind of messing with how the tires are, because it goes like this and then it comes up. It's kind of got this weird angle, and I just rather get up here and keep it going smooth. And again, keep off the paint, bring it probably closer than I was, but no Don't let those lefts drag on that apron. And that's it for the lap, because then we're just going to be going into turn one. But what I will do is we will go to our last lap so we can actually get our pit entrance. I didn't really talk about pit exit. Pit exit's just second gear and don't hit the walls. I mean, it's pretty much that basic. But for the pit entrance, I'm going to show you what to do there. Okay, so here we are coming out of NASCAR 3. Or, yeah, I guess NASCAR 3. Going into NASCAR 4. So what we're going to be looking for, there's a spot that I like to use for a brake point. It's nice and safe. So you're going to see these kinks in the paint. There's one there, and there's one there. That second one is the one that I actually want to be braking on. I'll be braking pretty hard, but I want to be, actually might be a little bit after that. But you want to have the steering wheel straight, hit the brakes hard, get the pit limiter on, and bring it down to 55. Yeah, it's actually the second one, I'm sorry. It's actually this guy here. That's the kink I'm after. And, okay, so I'm a little bit... Alright, so the things I'm looking for when I'm coming here, I could be further left. This is probably a little bit wider. You know, if I'm looking at this, somebody might be trying to sneak up the inside. So maybe get over here a little bit further, but I'm going to show you my brake point is between these two kinks right here. So you're going to see there's one kink way out here, and there's one kink right here. Between those two is where I want to be braking. And I actually slowed down a little too much there. You can see if I do this in slow motion, I'm hard on the brakes. And I actually let this go all the way down to like 45. You don't want to do that. So if you can time it, get it so you can time it. I mean, this is a safe entry. Probably wasn't the fastest entry. And then practice your pit stops, because you can gain and lose a lot of time either overshooting your pit or coming up too short. You know, you lose half a second, things like that. Or if you overshoot it, you can lose a couple seconds. So practice that as well. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do that same thing. We're going to run some laps in the Elantra, just to kind of show. That's kind of funny. Just to show the times, how much of a difference there is. So I mean, if we're looking at what I was doing before, we were looking at 7 point, almost 8 flats. What was my average? How about, let's call it a 7.9 for an average. So if we can do the same thing in the Elantra with those same breakpoints, then we can be fairly certain that the cars are fairly close. Alright, just like we did in the Honda, we are going to turn our, I guess, I'm not sure what this means on the ABS. You Elantra guys, you guys can play with that. I used to run this, but they've got a 1 is dry, 2 is damp, 3 is wet, 4 is safety, 5 is emergency. So I think 4 was pretty good, but I'm just going to run this at 1 now. You guys can experiment this, try running at a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. I think 5 was really strange when I did it last time. But I'm going to put my valve down to 1. I'm just going to put this at 50. I'm not sure now. I think I used to run this all the way down to like 35 or something like that. But just for this test here, I'm literally just going to run 49.9 with a brake valve 1. I'm going to leave the ABS alone. The Elantra runs more toe out in the rear, so it might be a little twitchier. But just like I did at the beginning of the video with the Honda and showed you how to change this, you can do the same thing. You know, bring this down to the smallest negative or the smallest positive, and then set your your camber and your offsets back. But here we go. We're just going to run some laps in the Elantra with our baseline, basically, with just some brake settings. Alright, we're going to basically do the same thing here with the Elantra and just put our times in and graph it out. Looks pretty similar. I don't know what the fast time... Fast times were pretty close. Average might have been a little bit off. And reminder, this isn't my car of choice, so I basically came into the Elantra in this session completely cold. I mean, I ran the Honda, and then I just jumped into the Elantra and ran the laps. The thing I've noticed is the brake points, everything seems to be... I basically drove it exactly like I was driving the Honda. The one thing I will note is that it felt like I was walking a little bit, a little drifty down the straights, so maybe I would take the toe in and knock this back down to like maybe 2.5, 2, maybe just 1 click, 2 clicks down, and then set your cambers and ride height back. It turned really well. I'll say it feels like it turns better than the Honda, but on the straight, I don't know if it's losing time on the straight. I haven't done telemetry and things like that, but I'd probably knock some toe out, like I said, 1 or 2 clicks to the right, and bring this down just a little bit, because I mean, what's 2 clicks? Let's see here. Yeah, I'd probably go 2.7 is probably pretty good to start with. See how that feels. If it's still a little sketchy, then bring it down some more. But that's probably the only thing I would do differently than the Honda. All right. So as far as our times go, let's see here. Let's put our times in. This is time Elantra. Alright, so I'm not sure exactly what that tells us. Remember, we were talking about the difference between this spike here and this spike here. Each one of these is a tenth, so that's 2/10 off. Let's see here. So it looked like it took a little bit longer for the tires to warm up, but once they did, if you look at starting right around lap 5, once the tires were warmed up, or sorry, not lap 5, lap, what is that? After lap 3, in fact, I'm going to do that real quick just to show on the graphs here. So if I do this one, actually, I'm going to wipe this out and just see what happens here. So if I go like this, if I look at that, well, the slope is exactly the same on the average. And you can see here, this is an anomaly, I'd say. This 8.3 because I screwed that up. So what? We're 1, 2, 3/10 off there, a tenth off there. Then the Elantra was faster. Then, is that a point there? I guess that is a point. Then they're exactly the same. That's a goof. I mean, I'm a tenth to 2 slower in the Elantra. I don't know. Maybe some seat time I can get that down. Anyway, that's just I guess where I'm at with the consistency of the Elantra. But I just wanted to see how it compared to the Honda. Like I said, for not practicing at all, I've run, you know, a lot more laps in the Honda the last couple weeks. I haven't run the Elantra since last season, so I don't know, 6 weeks or so. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, that's about all I have on that for now. So we're going to take a look at the driving line and see how that compares to what I've been using. So I'm going to be coming up here on lap 9. This is the same one we went through and basically put all the notes on there. So it's same lap. So it's going to analyze the driving line to see if I can pick up anything, and also if you guys insist on using the driving line to learn the track, maybe this will help you. Maybe the brake points are different, maybe the turn-ins different, things like that. We can just kind of see what's different about how they take, or how iRacing thinks you should take a lap around here, and what I'm doing currently. So we're just going to go ahead and move this up. So they're braking way later. You know, like I said in the other, the track walk, I'm braking somewhere in here, which is, again, we're going to come back here and look at the 100 marker. I'm braking about here, maybe latest up in here. They're not braking until here, which I think is just insane for this car. If I try to do this, the back end's going to be coming around on me. This is going to be very difficult, at least for me, to make the turn here. Even with putting the ABS on and things like that, I'm going to be locking up the rears because they're basically braking super hard and turning at the same time. This is going to bring your left rear up off the ground, in my opinion. So if you guys can do it, great. But I would not be braking this late. Now, this is what I've been seeing. More recently, I think the driving line I was in more agreement with, and I'd say, you know what, the driving line is pretty good. But I've been seeing this, I think this is the third track I've seen now, where the brake points are just really late. So I'd say brake earlier than what this driving line is here. Everything else looks pretty good as far as, I guess I'll just double check where I was actually braking on this lap. Yeah, I'm already on the brakes and I'm already at 50% here. So I'm starting my braking here. So then you can watch the trail braking and the turn-in. I think the turn-in is pretty much the same as I'm doing. And I should be easing off the brakes probably about the same time they are, which, again, of course, I'll agree with because it's exactly the same. I'm still trail braking all the way through this, though. They have like off, they're just coasting. So I don't know how they're getting. They must just be stomping on the brakes to be able to hit them that hard in the beginning because they're hitting them so late. They're getting their braking done in a very short period. Like I said, if you can do it, great. But I would be looping it every time here. And then I'm getting back on the gas a little earlier than they are, which is kind of interesting. Also notice how I roll the throttle. If you look at this, I'll put this in slower. But you can see here, I'm on it a little bit. And then I'm just creeping up. Just kind of seeing if I'm going to make this turn. And then once I'm confident, it's on. Again, I'm probably going to be hitting the brakes here in the next few frames. Let's see here. Yeah, I was 10 frames off. So you can see again, I'm braking much earlier than they are. I'd say everything's pretty much the same except for the exit. Maybe I just didn't get a good launch off there, but as long as I'm not hitting the grass I hear, I'm going to be okay. Same turn-in point. So we talked about it before. It's this little kink right here. Let me see here. So this little kink right here, it's the same as what they're turning in. So I'd say that looks pretty good. And again, well, I was going to say I'll probably be on the brakes pretty soon. I'm already touching the brakes here. I'm going to be hitting the brakes hard here. But you can see, again, I don't know how they're braking so late. So if you guys are learning this line, I'd probably say, so far I agree with everything. It's just back your brake points up. And you can see again, I'm trail braking all the way around here to get the back end to kind of rotate a little more. So I'm going to put this in slow motion. You can see I'm still on the brakes, just trail braking, and still trail braking, still on the brakes, because I want to make sure I get that right side on this curb, and then I'm back on it. And I haven't seen this yet, but I'm going to guess that they're going to be putting their brake point way later than I do. Let's see. And I should be hitting the brakes next couple frames. Let's see. 12 frames off. So again, I brake much sooner than they do. It looks like the turn-in is about the same here at the end of the curb. And again, you can see I'm trail braking a lot more than they are. Hey, look at that. Let me guess. It's going to be about less than 10 frames from here. Let's see. 2 frames off. Yep. And they're braking almost halfway between the 1 and the sign here. So I'm going to roll this in slow motion. And you can see hard on the brakes. Downshift at the light. Still fairly hard on the brakes. Downshift at the 1, because that's why the throttle's kicking up there. And then you can see again, I'm just kind of trailing off here on the brakes. They take a wider entry in here. I'm not sure why, because that's going to make you really have to cut this corner. I would say I like my line better than theirs. And then it looks like they're brushing the brakes again here. I'm not sure why you would do that. I might be a little bit shallower here than they are. And I think that's okay, because if I'm getting back onto the throttle, full throttle, the price of this is okay. And then again, we're just going to try to hit the two white dots there, run that curb. And that should be the end of the lap. Yeah, so my thoughts on the line here, I'd probably just say move your brake points back to where I have them. You can follow the line, and then just don't brush the brakes in the bus stop. Other than that, I'd say the driving line looks about, it matches pretty much everything that I've been doing. And again, I don't use the driving line to learn tracks. I mean, I know Daytona because I've been racing for a while, but I just do what. If you watch my video on how to learn a new track, that's pretty much the method I use every time. Just go out there and keep turning laps and watch the deltas and see which points, if I'm gaining time on entry, or if that gain, how much time I'm gaining on the entry versus how much time I'm losing on the exit, all that kind of stuff. But again, driving line seems okay. Just move your brake points back.